it turns out that that fun, hey, remember the 90s thing is actually part of this like big industrial dairy complex that has its entire like tentacles wrapped around the American government and has for like 100 years. Everything we know from like government cheese, where they gave cheese to the poor, to the stuffed crust pizza, which you think maybe like Pizza Hut invented that. No, it was the government working on behalf of the dairy industry to try to push more cheese into everything.
This is Rough Cut, your community-driven podcast on navigating the art and practice of nonfiction video storytelling from all of your friends at the Video Consortium.
Hi there, I'm your guest host. I'm Jarod Neece, senior programmer at the Tribeca Festival, and I'm here with Nicholas Bruckman. Nicholas is a documentary filmmaker, founder of People's Television. He's had 3 films at Tribeca for the past few years: Not Going Quietly, Minted, and The Price of Milk, spanning disability activism, NFTs, and our food systems. And today we're talking about his work, the festival circuit, and running a production company in the documentary world.
Thank you for doing this, Jared. You are a legend and big time programmer at South by Southwest, and now at Tribeca. So, just really appreciate everything you do for the independent film community.
Oh, my pleasure. It's just, the best part is being able to, help you find your audiences and, being able to showcase the work. We provide the platform. You guys are doing all the work. But, I just, starting off, I just kind of I was thinking about like, what was the first time you knew you wanted to be a filmmaker, and how did you go about becoming one?
Yeah, thanks, Jared. I was making films with like double VHS deck in 1991, editing like with the record and the play button, 2 tapes. Wanted to, like any other kid at that time, like be James Cameron or Tarantino. And it wasn't until around 9/11. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up in the city. I was in high school. I was filming, of course, as I was, every day in high school. Went down to ground zero. I actually had my tape of that day confiscated by a police officer. I don't know why. But that wasn't the moment. It was that in the subsequent years, as I kind of was involved in the anti-war activism scene in New York, I just realized that I should kind of bring together the things that I'm passionate about: social justice, combating xenophobia, and my like film work together. And that sort of shifted my interest into documentary. And I went to SUNY Purchase, which is
Okay.
like right outside the city. It's the poor man's NYU and poor man's Tisch. And, we didn't quite have the opportunities. It was always kind of seen as like, sort of smaller and niche school. I was not in the film conservatory very intentionally. I was in the new media program because at that time you had to choose between doing new media, which at the time was like digital video was new media, or
Right.
film. And the film kids had to edit on Steenbecks for a year, had to shoot on 16 millimeter. And I was already shooting docs where I was interviewing people for hours. And like all the respect to, Albert Maysles and Frederick Wiseman and all the documentary filmmakers who did that for 100 years. But I was already knew this technology allowed you to like delete and record a new clip. And I wanted to do that. So I was in the communications program, and I ended up running the school TV station, which was called Purchase Television and PTV. And many years later, formed People's Television with a similar logo out of that. And it was cool for me. I'll just mention one other thing, which is that being in a smaller school like that and really being ambitious to want to make it as a filmmaker was good, because not everybody was that motivated at the state school. Like, no shade to the other kids, but I was able to do things like run the whole school TV station because I really wanted to, and because nobody else was like stepping up to do that. And it's a cool art school. Hal Hartley, Wesley Snipes, like a bunch of people doing weird stuff went there, and I made the best of it. And because I ran the school TV station, I was able to like kind of steal all that gear.
That's awesome. Yeah. Definitely you don't have to be at NYU to be a filmmaker. You can be, you don't have to go to anywhere to be a filmmaker, but, so let's talk about like, the past 3 films. I guess we can start with Not Going Quietly. It's, just such a powerful emotional film. It's about Addie Barkan's activism. Um, and I guess my question to start with that one is like, what did you learn from working with someone fighting for both social justice and for their own life?
Yeah, the cool thing about Not Going Quietly, which was at Tribeca, it was actually invited to Tribeca 2020, height of the pandemic, which was canceled.
R.I.P. Yeah,
Yeah, then we came back with it the following year, played at South by and Tribeca, which was cool.
yep,
But what I would say about Adi and that whole story, it was a really transformative film for me, and it actually came out of my brand work because, we'll probably talk about a little bit of the commercial work I do, but I met this guy who needed like a YouTube video for his healthcare movement, like a political ad, basically. And as soon as I met him, I hadn't made a movie in 8 years at that time, and was like, I need to drop everything and follow this guy around until he loses his voice because he was already
mm,
losing it. But the thing that made the film work, because it is about activism and healthcare and a bunch of other stuff that nobody wants to watch a movie about, is that he was super funny and had this like self-deprecating Jewish like wry morbid humor, to like total pothead. And the film is like him and this merry young band of activists going on his last road trip together, and it like happens to be about social justice,
right.
but it could be like him writing his last symphony or whatever. And that's the kind of story that I'm very attracted to, is things that where the character transcends the issue in some way.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many documentaries out there where it's just like, you know, great story, cool, sports docs about like great athletes, but it's like, okay, like there has to be something more. Like there has to be another layer to it, something, unless it's just someone who can transcend all of that, which is only a few people. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking for things, and I guess the whole marketplace is in that very narrow Venn diagram of this matters, and when I'm tired from work and get home on Thursday night, I want to watch this.
Right.
Like that's a very slim like portion of projects, and
A
I
lot of
think
people fighting for your attention.
exactly, yeah, especially like trying to get people to care and take action and all of that kind of stuff that we issue-oriented filmmakers want to do. Like you have to entertain people.
And so your next doc, Minted, doc about NFTs, a little bit of a departure from, the disability activism, but I guess, that's not, you're just looking for these stories of these, characters or communities or, people. And this is obviously a story that was super timely. And, what pulled you into that world, and how did you get involved in that?
Yeah. Well, we definitely lucked out. We're in the right time at the right place. And a lot of people were very confused that I was making this like crypto film, because it's definitely not a world that's associated with like progressive activism like Adi was doing, or like immigration movies I've made. And, there's a lot of like kind of libertarian vibes and conservative,
Right.
and sort of right wing elements of that world. Not exclusively, but the main through line is that like both Adi and Beeple, who's the star of Minted, are like these iconoclastic characters that are trying to push back on some kind of broken system. And in the case of NFTs, it was all of these digital artists trying to figure out how to survive, just the way we're talking about how doc filmmakers can make it in a world where all of art is replicable and five platforms own all of our information and all of our data and all of our art, and the best you can hope for is to like game the algorithms. They like came up with this idea of transacting the artwork as crypto, and for this brief moment in time it was actually this like beautiful opening of the aperture of what was possible for artists. And what I thought was interesting about that, partly because I went to art school and I studied video art and learned about Namjoon Pike and all these digital artists, and I, kind of wanted to do that stuff before I got all political, was that they were taking this tool that was, something people only thought about as a financial instrument, and like flipping it on its head and making it something super empowering to artists. And
Hmm.
I didn't really know if it was going to be a movie until the whole thing did sort of start to crash, because then we actually had the drama the
Right.
entertainment, the Schadenfreude, because frankly, a lot of people like when you read the, some of the Reddit comments, I did like a Reddit AMA about Minted, and like the questions are like great film, but how did you keep a straight face while talking to the biggest losers and suckers in the planet? And it's because people just have this super preconceived notion about all this because people want to see people like lose a lot of money. Nobody wants to see other people get rich. And I think that the market forces and that world falling apart, the like fall of the rise and fall, made it more commercial and makes it something that people want to watch. And ultimately, Netflix did buy that film. It's the first film that I've sold to Netflix, which was really, huge for me personally, and obviously like a
Yeah.
huge stamp and really exciting. But I know for this rough cut audience, like people want to know more from you than they do from me, Jarod, about like the festival
Okay.
world and how to get in. Like I feel like you really can't try to chase the news with these projects, and you have to make
No.
a film that withstands the test of time. I was talking to Barbara Koppel, who made Harlan County, while I was
Sure.
making Not Going Quietly, and I was telling her like, "Oh, we got to get this movie done before the election," which I didn't. Right, it was before the
Right.
Trump election 2020, and she was like, yeah, when I was making Harlan County, we were like trying to get it out to like time it with the coal strike or whatever. And like
Mm-hmm.
now it's like 50 years later and it's just like an iconic piece of cinema about
Right. Right.
workers' rights. I wonder though if you're ever like you see something and you're just like, oh man, if I'd seen this a year ago when people cared about NFT,
No.
this.
No. There's not that much topical programming. We're programming more like what is good, and then we'll create a program around it versus there's these artificial programs that you have to like, oh, I need to have some tech film, so I'm going to pick a NFT film or this kind of, it's got to be like the work first. But yeah, so and then let's just talk about the third film that you've worked on in the recently, and most recently is The Price of Milk, which begs the obvious question, why milk? um, no, but no, it's a great film. It's very cool, and a little bit more back to your roots of activism. And yeah, tell us a little about that.
Yeah, totally. And it began as a feature and ultimately converted into a series, four-part series, my first episodic project, which you
Mm,
guys had the uh, you know, kind of flexibility to program in the now section, which is one of the
right.
things that's really
Yep.
cool about Tribeca's embrace of this format, which again, I'm a newbie to. This project, yeah, it's even weirder kind of a jump from like healthcare to NFTs to milk. I'm trying to figure out where I can go from there.
Probably hot dogs. Hot dogs are
Yeah, hot
natural,
dogs would be good. That's probably get pretty dark.
real quick.
That's the truth. But yeah, the milk industry is messed up, and
Mm,
we thought, much like we're talking about, like, okay, how do you make these projects about like issues palatable and that you care? And the window for us was the Got Milk commercials of the 90s because we all grew up with them, at least I did. Like,
same.
us elder millennials all remember the mustaches, the Aaron Burr commercial, which, fun fact, was directed by Michael Bay, the iconic commercial where the guy's about to take a bite of his food while he's in the museum, and the guy calls him for $10,000. Who shot Aaron Burr? Shot Alexander Hamilton.
Iconic.
Iconic commercial. It turns out that fun, like, we all, hey, remember the 90s thing, is actually part of this like big industrial dairy complex that has its entire like tentacles wrapped around the American government and has for like 100 years. Everything we know from
Mm,
like government cheese, where they gave cheese to the poor, to the stuffed crust pizza, which you think maybe like Pizza Hut invented that. No, it was the government working on behalf of the dairy industry to try to push more cheese into everything. And so we use kind of the advertising lens to look at the whole food system in a way that's not super serious. But what's important to know about the project that I think is interesting in terms of like where the industry is going and my different worlds is that this series um, originated when a plant milk company put out I got connected to them and heard that they were interested in doing something in the world of food and milk. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because, one, us filmmakers like need to find resources to make these projects now. And, but can somebody with a stake in the story actually let us have the freedom to make something good? And so what we thought about is like, well, let's do something a little subversive and make something that's kind of pro milk. And the way that it is that the main heroes of the story are the small dairy farmers who try to take the Got Milk campaign to the Supreme Court to take it down, because the dairy farmers don't benefit from this campaign and they have to pay into it. And that's kind of the reveal of the story, is that these programs that everybody knows, beef, it's what's for dinner, pork, the other white meat, the touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives. I'm not going to sing that one. These are all these government taxed programs that benefit only the big dairies. So the series doesn't tell people what to drink. In fact, it's kind of on the side of the dairy farmers, just against
Hmm.
entanglements between. And that we thought was like a cool way. And fortunately, this brand gave us a lot of flexibility to do it. And we will see how the marketplace responds.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff happening right now in the brand space that is, beneficial to both filmmakers and to the brands themselves. So,
Yeah, exactly. And my, take on this I mean, like you said about the rich aunts and uncles, and for all, like, there's a lot of filmmakers who listen. There's a lot of great documentary filmmakers in the VC community, and a lot of people are like asking me how to get stuff funded. And just every single project has been different and involved
hmm
different types of this type of thing. The brand thing kind of causes the most like consternation of like, oh wow, that's interesting. But honestly, like most foundations, like Ford Foundation and any other thing
yeah,
that you think of as a more palatable source for money, also ultimately, originates usually from some type of corporate or high net worth individual sponsorship. For
right,
the
right.
cryptocurrency, for the NFT project, we were able to raise money from people who had made a lot of money in the crypto community, but we kept those same ethical standards of this is not going to be a commercial for NFTs, mostly because if it were, nobody would watch it. Like we want to make something that's going to go to the Tribeca Film Festival, and it's got to be editorially independent. Same with not.
Was Minted paid for with crypto?
Well, we raised money from the community of crypto, and yes, some of the money was raised in actual tokens at the time,
Hmm.
which, at the time it was a very high flying time. Although we're kind of back there again now for folks
Right.
who follow that. But it was structured; those were structured as grants, much in the way that you would set up. We use fiscal sponsorships for our projects. Some of my projects have had a mix of investor money, with Not Going Quietly, the Duplass Brothers production company
hmm
was an
hmm
investor in it. But then, of course, we went to progressive organizations and grant makers, and got foundation grants just like filmmakers do. So I kind of think you have to knock down like every single door that's relevant
hmm
right now, because we're not in Europe.
Right.
And the entire infrastructure of state funding is like basically gone, and the little that we have in terms
hmm
of ITVS and PBS is currently in jeopardy. A lot of great people, including Brian Newman, who is somebody on our
hmm
Price of Milk team. I think he used to work at Tribeca
hmm
himself. He's runs this thing called the Future Film Coalition.
Yep.
That's speaking of advocacy, trying to organize filmmakers not only to protect PBS, but to find further opportunities for um, public monies for the arts the way Europe has. So that's something I'm really passionate about. But in the meantime, I don't mind hitting up the
Yeah.
corporations if they're willing to let us make great.
Absolutely. So you've had a good run. Three years at Tribeca. How do you work on enough projects that you can get enough finished, and how do you know what to focus on?
Yeah. So in my, I both direct and produce, my projects, and then I produce other people's projects, and I I really feel like I only want to direct things that I'm like uniquely positioned to do. It's not because I know a lot of people think like, oh, you have to be from the community represented on screen, and like I don't feel that strongly about that. I mean, I made a film about Adi who's disabled, and
Mm,
I don't identify as somebody with a disability, and made films about immigration, even though I'm not necessarily from that community. But I do feel like you have to have some kind of reason that you have to tell this story, because you are there when the NFT thing blows up, or because maybe I'm not a farmer, but I remember those commercials and I think I can translate this whole like farming story to like regular people. So having a connection to the audience is something that I feel like is really equally as important to the community. And that's something I think about in terms of
Hmm.
what projects to choose. In terms of what to actually work on and divide my time, I mean, I really feel like I think first about all of this business stuff that we're talking about. Like, we've been talking about what's fundable, what's financeable, what's going
Hmm.
to get distribution, what is entertaining enough. And a lot of times people come to me with really cool projects and great access, but about a project about like homelessness or something. And I'm just using that as a random example, which I think, you know, could be great if there's like a certain very specific commercial angle to it. But if I don't feel like at the back end there's like some type of actual audience or distribution mechanism for this to get seen, I, think you kind of have to pass on it. And I feel that way with brand stories too on our commercial work, where like often we get hit up of like, our CEO should have a Netflix show, like he's so fascinating. And I want to work on the project and I'd be happy to take their money, but you have to tell them like, no, like it's not going to be on Netflix. Like you can't pay your
Right.
way
Right.
into these platforms for the most part. You have to have
Hmm.
something that has a real audience. And I think that sweet spot is like very small. And I think frankly there's just you would be the one to know this better than me, but like there's kind of an oversupply of documentary films right now. There's more supply than demand. I'm really interested in producing other people's projects right now because I feel like we need more collaboration and more teamwork on fewer projects, making them better and better, than we need another
More
documentary
projects.
about this topic.
And speaking of festivals, I guess, what's your, I guess, what's your main advice for filmmakers trying to get in their first festival?
I wanted to ask you that.
What I mean?
I know you're interviewing me, but
I
I'm making more
know.
of a dialogue. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
because
no
I
doubt.
feel very fortunate to have the support from you guys, and I'll say that like
Hmm.
my first film ever, Valley of Saints, got into Sundance, and I thought, cool, like I'll just bring all my films to Sundance, and I have not been back yet. That was more than 10 years ago.
Well, every year they have 200 new alumni, and it can't just be a lot, like every festival, it's just like, yeah, it is very competitive. And, this year we almost got 14,000 films submitted. And so that's just a lot of, people trying to make things and get them out there. And it is, less than 1% is what we take. You got to be doing it for the right reasons. You got to be making it because it's like you're saying, you have this passion, you have to tell this story. You can just tell. I mean, it's hard to be like what works, but it's like what works is whenever someone is telling you a story that they care about, and that's not just this package thing where it's like, oh, I got all these people to be in this, and there's like somebody has to give a shit, like
Yeah,
somebody has to give a shit in this project to make it work. And yeah, it's rare, but if that's your passion, then keep doing it. And you may not be like but if you just keep if you're making something with passion, I think that's the only way to do it.
yeah, that's cool. I obviously can't add anything more to like how to succeed at festivals than you, except that I've really tried to develop a relationship with Tribeca
Yeah, no,
specifically.
obviously there's a lot of that, absolutely.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, and one thing I will say, by the way, is that I feel like, and maybe others will disagree, that it's actually not, the festival world is not that political in the sense that I'm sure that back in the day, I don't know, Harvey Weinstein or whoever would call up, the
Sure.
head,
I mean,
maybe,
they're
but
still doing that. They're still calling up everybody, but it's they can't, there's only so many slots, and not everyone's going to get everything every time. And yeah, there's going to be plenty of things that get in for whatever reasons, but majority of things are just like, these were the best things we saw. This is what we
yeah,
love. This
yeah.
is
When Valley of Saints got into Sundance, we made a movie in India with non-professional actors playing themselves with a crew of three. I produced and recorded sound. We had $175,000. And I got I was like, got the call, and I was like, crying, like, I can't believe this is happening. And
wow.
then
Yeah, that's
one,
great.
yeah, won the audience award at like 25, and then it took me, I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to get the Marvel
Boom, next.
franchise next. Yeah. It took me 9 years before I actually got another movie financed and made. And so like,
I mean, that's real talk right there too.
yeah. And a lot of my friends who got into Sundance or anywhere else and kept going back, you talk to them on the down low and they've still got $250,000 in debt from NYU, even though
Yep.
everything seems really great on the surface. And so I think, yeah, I think social media and all of the kind of, competitive nature of indie film business, which is obviously a lot of us filmmakers feel a lot of that FOMO. We see our
Hmm.
colleagues getting into stuff and getting recognition, and it can be painful and drive you, and it can be positive. For me, I feel some of that, and it can really make me hustle to make better work and to,
Hmm.
you know, be use that as fuel. But on the other hand, like, you never really know what people's paths are and how
Yeah.
sustainable what they're doing is. And I think it's important to define success on your own
Yeah,
terms. Like,
absolutely. Like, what are you in it for? Is this a passion project? Is this, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? Is this, I got to tell this one story, I got to tell this multiple stories, I have to, you know, like, what's the reason? Um,
yeah.
and then, you've been doing this for a few years now. So can you talk about, like, you're saying audience first with your projects, a lot of the stuff you do. Um, you know, t- let's talk about the brand side and how the landscape has changed over these years and, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it totally relates to everything we're saying, which is like, for example, I think some people are, surprised that I, spent a lot of time working on this sort of commissioned client work. And so I run a production company called People's TV. I'm very connected to this video consortium community, which is a lot of amazing video journalists that we're doing the
Mhm.
podcast for now, because we hire a lot of those folks to work on documentaries for brands. When I was younger, I thought like filmmakers don't make commercials. And then I realized, like, actually, like, Errol Morris is making commercials and Inarritu is working for P&G. And this is like a very natural balance of the world. So I lost that stigma right away. And for me, it's a really cool opportunity to get to work with other documentary filmmakers and collaborate with people, and also to make stuff that only takes a couple of months and not 3 to 7 years. So I find it very fulfilling, but you have to be careful not to lose your soul doing it. And I really advise people, like, have a craft that's in while you're directing. All the audience here, everybody's working on their feature,
Mhm.
and if you've got something that's marketable, whether that's, let's say commercial producing like I do, or if it's, I don't know, just be an editor and work for other people's projects. Like, editors are still commanding good day rates on docs right now. Like, be able to do that so that you're at least able to stay in the industry or program at festivals. If you get that work. I'm not saying that's like a, easy fallback job to have, but at least you're staying like in
Right.
the
Yeah.
media. A lot of people do leave this industry, and I think for good reasons. Like, this shit is not easy at all. So for me, that's been my path to set up People's TV. And now what I'm really interested in is, can we get these brands that we work with to make better and better work, to make stuff that's good enough to go to a festival, stuff that's good enough to go to a streamer. And again, this optics of success, like, last film sold to Netflix, film before that sold to Hulu and Vice, and that all seems good. None of that is enough money to live in New York City
Right.
with
Right.
as I'm doing. And so, I'm just as interested to hear how anybody else is making it work. For me, this is my path. And yeah, we're always looking for great people to work with.
That's great. I mean, yeah, I know it's hard everywhere. It's like there's not, as a programmer, I didn't, I was a biochem major at UT. I was trying to be a doctor, and then I was like, okay, no, I can't work in Western medicine. And then I was just like, what am I gonna do? And then I didn't, film was always like a love of mine. It was just I loved watching films. I loved, like, I telling my friends they have to watch movies, which is just now a very much more advanced version of that I do now.
I just want to know, like, is programming like is it like, we're talking about the optics of how things look from the
Yeah.
outside versus
Okay.
how they
Great.
really are.
Okay.
So
Sure.
is programming a dream job, or is it, like
It's
fulfill that lifelong love of movies, or is when you actually comes down to it, is it like
it's amazing. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it took me a long time to be. I mean, it was fun the whole way. South by, when I started working at South by, we only accepted VHS tapes for submissions. So that was, but it was just, tearing open the boxes, labeling everything, and then like bringing your bag of films home, and it's a drug. I mean, like what, like because the next thing you put on could be, your next favorite film, whatever. So it's just there's that part of it, and yeah, we're watching movie. I'm not, we're not digging ditches, so it's like we're watching movies for a living. We get to travel to a lot of cool festivals, but it is like it's there's only a small number of people that get to do it, and you just get that you have to like do it enough to know um like what you don't know too, like everyone's taste is they ended up there based on everything they've ever done in their life. They what they like, what they don't like. I pick things because I connect to them, that there's just it's more of a gut for me, like because I'm not a trained, I'm not a you know, I didn't go to film school. I just know that what I like, and what I don't like, and what I think people will like based on years of doing it, and like how that connects, how they connect to those films. And so, yeah, just doing it long enough and knowing how things work. And so when you're watching them, you can see like, okay, this is going to go over really well, or people are going to really be into this, or like that's, and because you see so much, like we watch 500-600 films a year, and it's like, so what's out there, what is this up against? You're not just programming in a vacuum. It's like this is good based on everything else I've seen this year. You want a diverse program, geographic diversity, socioeconomic, um, big films, little films, distribution, no distribution. So there's just a ways you're trying to create programs and opportunities for people. Um, but yeah,
I like you see that Rick Rubin interview with Anderson Cooper where there's like, so do you make music? And he's like, no. Do you produce? Do you write beats, lyrics? No. So what do they pay you for? He says, my taste.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, Rick Rubin, that's definitely a big mentor. He's a dude. Yeah, because it's just like, yeah, he's got an ear. He's like, he knows. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that sounds good. This doesn't, like, take this out, put this in.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's just like when you see it, and it's like um, working with the programmers at Tribeca versus South by. I mean, it's just people that love movies and want to promote people and want to give artists opportunities to connect.
Yeah. Festivals still really, really matter, even like with everything else changing, like social media and AI, like having the stamp and the platform of a film festival like Tribeca still changes the whole trajectory.
Yeah, and going to festivals for people. I mean, it's just a way you can see like what's on the you're like on the front lines of what's happening, in independent film. Any festival near you. I mean, regional fests are amazing. Um, any festival you can get to. I mean, there's ways, opportunities to get involved as volunteers, as screeners, so, if that's something you're into, then there's always opportunities to get involved that way.
Cool, man. Well, I know that like VC community is going to be really keen to hear this, and yeah, get to meet you because you're really important figure,
Yeah.
and like you're one of the gatekeepers that's trying to actually open the door for people. So appreciate you,
Yeah,
and
always.
thanks for making time to do this.
And yeah, thanks for having us. It was cool to be part of this. And please feel free to email me if you have questions.
Yeah, and you can hit me up at People's TV if folks want to collaborate. And yeah, excited to do more with you in the future, Jarod.
All right, man.